And I'm joined today by none other than Max Barr of Southeastern 16. You can find him over on Twitter at Max Barr CBB. How you doing today, Max?
Well, now that you have asked me to start talking some college hoops on this fine mid September Friday evening, life couldn't be better. Owen, life couldn't be better. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, I appreciate it. Yeah, and as you mentioned, we're talking some college hoops. I know my viewership, and we kind of talked about it before we got going. My viewership, I cover football content, but I know my viewers care a ton about basketball, and obviously over at Southeastern 16, y'all have some pretty rabid basketball fans as well. For any of you that don't currently watch their stuff, I'm not sure why not. They do a great job covering SEC hoops. One of the main groups that do that outside of Field of 68 from a national level. But one to start the conversation with some Alabama talk. One to obviously I know that, and I'll put the link down in the description. But you kind of did the breakdown of the visual depth charts for every team, so I know you have a little bit of an idea of obviously who's on each team. But if you were to say, who is your breakout guy that some people aren't expecting, I have a name in my mind that I've kind of got two names that I've been hearing floated a lot, but from somebody who obviously doesn't look at the same team every day, who is your, this guy's is poised to have a huge season?
So there's two names that in conversations I've had this offseason, there's two names that for this exact question get brought up a lot. And then my answer is even a different one. So the most I hear is Aiden Sherrill because he's, stepping into this big time role. The minutes are going to increase. The production should increase, the volume, all that. You could totally see it. We just got those roster updates. He's up to 255, putting on some muscle, going to bang around a little bit with these big SEC boys. And then Jalil Bethea, Miami transfer, super talented, nice shot. But if you're a college basketball fan, you know how things were, were last season for Miami. So new regime, new system, very shooter offensive friendly system. You got Jalil Bethea there. But mine is Houston Millett. I don't know why he's just not being talked about in SEC circles. You look into kind of what past coaches and past teammates have said about his leadership and stuff like that, and just locker room type of guy. And not even to mention, I don't know what episode of the Hey Coach it was, but I'm pretty sure Oates said Millett might be the second or third leading scorer on this team. Now, I don't know if he's just hyping up his guys, but I mean, hey, if you want to talk about a guy that has played a ton of basketball, can shoot the heck out of it, and has a history of being called a great leader, great person, great teammate, I don't know how Houston Millett's not being talked about a little bit more.
Yeah, and the thing with Houston is, for anybody that has kind of followed his story or knows anything about him, his dad's the athletic director at UC Riverside, or what I think he actually took a new job, but he was the
I
athletic
believe he's
director.
in the SEC now somewhere.
Is he at South Carolina? Maybe.
Might be. I'm
Maybe
not 100% sure.
I think it might be South Carolina. He was previously the athletic director at UC Riverside. Houston Millett's a guy that's super introspective around himself. Like he's somebody that a lot of people point to of this guy's going to be a coach in the future. His career is not playing future basketball; it's coaching. He is somebody also that his shot, and I talked about this a ton last year. His shot is so pretty. It is just when it comes off the hand, you assume it's going in every time. And it's not that he shot it at the level of Latrell Wrightsell. Obviously they didn't have the same number of attempts or anything like that, but Houston's shot gives you so much confidence when it's coming off the hand. So I really like that one. A name that I'm kind of sounding the alarm bells on, and it's the name that coming into transfer portal season is the name that I thought I was going to care about the least. And it's actually one of the ones that I'm caring about the most is actually Keaton Bristow.
Ooh,
Um, he's a guy that when you hear people talk about him, when you see practice footage, I've heard some people that have been to practice. I know Jordan Harper mentioned it when he was at practice. Multiple people have said Keaton Bristow's name, and he's a guy that the defense just flows effortlessly to. I posted a video a couple of weeks ago where Henry Barrera had him. He had a 40 and a half inch vertical. The athleticism is just off the charts. He's a guy that you don't really hear a lot about because he came from Tarleton State. But, I mean, he was freshman of the year in the WAGs. I mean, it's not. That's not saying nothing when you're talking about somebody that obviously has the skill talent to be in the SEC.
I think I saw that clip you're talking about, that vertical. It was like a 41-inch vertical or something like that. Some sort of either tying a record or setting a record in some form. Um, it, what do you expect minutes wise from Bristow? Because you also have 6'8" London Jemison, who's a top 40 recruit, who's a freak athlete. You've got Amari Allen, who we can't stop hearing enough good things about Amari Allen, another 6'8" guy. Great problem to have here.
Yeah. And the problem you're talking about is, if it were me and you were to ask me who the odd man out is, unless there's some type of injury, I think your odd man out is Collins, the new guy. He is for sure going to be one that I think is an odd man out. I think he was a kind of a break glass in case of emergency. I heard some people say that wasn't the case. It's really tough for me to believe that, though. The other one that I think is going to play sparingly, but I still think he finds a way to get some minutes, is Davion Hannah. I think that Hannah is more of a defensive option, so he's going to be somebody, where you see Oates throw him out there if the effort isn't what he wants to see, right? But it's a scholarship guy to put in the effort, right? When Oates was here as a first-year coach, he used to throw Britton Johnson out there, just like whoever he could. He would just throw somebody out there and see if he could get some extra effort. But I think that's what you're going to see out of Davion Hannah. I just think his offense is a little behind his defense. And so that's going to hurt him in being in the Oates system. I think we have enough two-way guys this year that that's going to be a bit of a problem. From a Bristow perspective, it would not shock me if we're seeing 12 to 15 minutes out of him, maybe. Anything more than that, I think that he's taken some insane step forward. Now, obviously, as an Alabama fan, playing more than that is a good thing. Playing less than that isn't necessarily a bad thing, right? Because you have such a stacked roster, like you just talked about. That is a stacked position for Alabama, that 6'8" to 6'10". We're not even talking about Taylor Bowen, which may be one of the most alien-like guys to play basketball, from a defensive perspective. So that's the thing that you have to look at with this Alabama team, is they have a great problem from who they have. The guy who, when I asked some buddies, hey, what do y'all want me to ask Max about? They want to know your thoughts on LeBaron Fallon. Obviously, he's returning, but he's returning into a substantially different role than he was in last season. How do you think LeBaron obviously steps into that role? Do you think that it's something that he's going to take some time to get used to? Because I don't know if you've seen our schedule recently, but we only have one. There's only one get right game, and then you get thrown to the Wolves. So what are your kind of thoughts on LeBaron?
LeBaron coming back. When everyone got those notifications, you remember, you get the 3 different CBB analysts that you have your notifications turned on during transfer season and all that. When I got those notifications, Phylon is returning, I had to almost triple take. I remember I texted my partner at Southeastern 16, Blake, right away. Phylon's coming back? Because every day, every week during those NBA decisions, you're looking at NBA feedback. You're looking at what do you think he's going to do? Okay, I think 60% he's going to stay in, 40% he comes back. We were doing that for all those fringe SEC guys. Phylon was always in the conversation is yeah, okay, we'll talk about him, but he's going to stay in the draft. We'll talk about him, but he's going to stay in the draft. I think this could be a first team all SEC, top 5 player in the league. One thing I would if we're talking just little analytics, I would like the turnover rate to come down just a little bit if he's going to be the lead guy. Aiden Holloway plays, a little bit of the lead as well, bringing the ball up. But get that turnover rate down a little bit more. Take some sophomore leaps. Was not expecting him last year to start out of the gate like he did. I mean, remember he was a Kansas guy and then comes over after decommitting, so it wasn't always on our radar last offseason, and then just comes firing out of the gate. I remember specifically I sent out a tweet, I think in late November last year, and it was something along the lines of, every time I think LeBaron Phylon I've realized what type of player he is, then he does another play and I'm like, wait, he's even better than I thought he was. And I don't think we're done with that. I think that's going to happen all year next year. Really one of my favorite players in the whole league.
And I think kind of what you're talking about is the place where I think he was completely underrated last year. Obviously, not to Alabama fans, but to the league as a whole, was his defense.
Mm.
People think about like Mark Sears' floater to beat Auburn. One play before that,
Yes.
Phylon gets the steal and the slam, right? Like one play before that, it like sets it up. So it's kind of the standpoint of, when you think back to last season, you really look at some of the highlights and some of the things that he did. Like he was really all over the floor, even if he wasn't making the score, right? Whether it was getting the steal or whatever. Of course, he had some shooting woes, but he was never meant to be that. He wasn't Mark Sears. He wasn't ever meant to be that type of shooter,
Yeah.
that type of guy. I agree with the turnovers. I think it is something that we're going to expect to see out of him more. I do also agree, though. I don't know if you've seen any recent photos of Aiden Holloway, but he has put on some weight and some muscle, and I think that that's going to help him, potentially be able to play through some additional contact. So I would suspect that you're going to have Aiden, obviously, holding the ball or handling the ball some, but obviously LeBaron's going to have to be handling it some. Also, you get Latrell back, so I'm sure that's going to be kind of your three-headed attack from the point guard position. I guess the last thing that when you really look at Latrell that you kind of have to note, and you were talking about the Kansas thing, but the thing that kind of blows my mind about Latrell is anybody that followed that recruitment, he was an Alabama kid that always wanted to come to Alabama from multiple sources. Like he was an Alabama, I don't want to say soft commit, that's not what I want to say, but like he was in Alabama. If Nate Oates gave him the go ahead, like he wanted to come to Alabama. And the funny part is Nate Oates was most concerned about his defense. That's why he didn't want to get Latrell, not Latrell, LeBaron Phylon, was because of his defense. He was concerned because of what he was scoring back at Baker and all the, back when he was in Mobile, he just wasn't playing much defense. And it was a situation of he wasn't playing it, not he couldn't play it. And Nate just wasn't sure about that. And then we start hearing reports out of camp of Mark Sears has his hands full. Like you started hearing that pretty consistently. And I think that's what, is reminding me about like the Keaton Bristow or Amari Allen. That was what you were hearing out of LeBaron Phylon last offseason, right? You were hearing, hey, he's given some of your starters more than they can handle. Not saying he's going to take their spot or anything, but you might want to watch out for this guy. So I think that's where my, Amari Allen and Keaton Bristow kind of, these may be two guys you need to watch out for. Because Allen was a guy who, a lot of people thought he was going to be he played a bunch of bad competition in Wisconsin. He's not going to be that good. So very curious about that one. I guess
one quick aspect I before we move on from Phylon. Think about this also, Alabama fans. Think about this. You need a stop. Oh, you just need a stop. You need one. And you're playing good guards. You're playing dang good guards. You're in the SEC. You're probably playing some good guards. You're going to trot out there for defense on the 1, 6'4", on the 2, 6'3". It's only going to get taller from there out. That's something that Alabama has not been able to do in the past few years, is throw out a little positional size there as well. Now with Trelly getting healthy and Phylon another year, you can throw out 6'4", 6'3" at the 1 and 2 and have some positional size defensively.
And when you're talking positional size, I agree with that standpoint. I think Latrell's defense would keep him on the floor in that instance because his, perimeter defense is really good. But if you had to go true size,
you could go bigger.
You could go Bethea at the 2,
yes,
and just slide a Keaton or a Amari Allen or somebody else at the 3, and it gets massive really quickly.
Yes.
I mean, it gets huge very, very quick. Not to say that this team is going to do obviously what Duke did last year, but it reminds me of what Duke's, it almost feels like Nate Oates lost to Duke last season in the Elite Eight because of the size they had at every position and said, I'm not going to let that happen again. I'm going to get size at every position.
There's going to be options. There's going to be lineup options. There's going to be like little possession, defensive little nuggets per possession that Alabama's going to be able to do that they haven't in the past few years.
And I think all that said, and I still think this might be one of your best shooting teams ever.
Yeah.
Especially if Bethea works out at a level that I think he potentially could with his talent. I think that who you have on the floor, you have a true stretch five, whether you're playing Williamson or Sherelle. Obviously, your four is always going to be a stretch. I mean, from an currently from a 3-point shooting perspective, I mean, your worst 3-point shooters, if I had to pick them right this minute, is obviously Onjiaka, and then it's Hannah.
Yeah.
Okay. So the two guys I mentioned that might be either lower minutes or semi red shirts. Okay, if that's the only two guys that are not shooting the three well, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, and it's gonna be such an advantage over the rest of the league, shooting wise. It's pretty much the sole reason why I keep moving Alabama up my SEC preseason rankings. I'm gonna have them probably top 4 or top 3 because of this shooting advantage. It's going to be good on its own, but what I do in the offseason to try to like get a picture of who's going to be the better shooting teams and who's going to really struggle from outside in the offseason, I take every player that's on the new team and I take their 3-point numbers from last year and just kind of if the newly put together team had a team 3-pointer number from all the different players last year, I add them all up. I do makes, percentage, and then I do like a composite ranking. Alabama's number one, and it's not even remotely close. This year's squad last year made 371 threes. That's 60 more than the next highest team in the SEC. They've blown away the rest of the league 3-pointer numbers from last year.
And when I was doing some research on some of my previews that I did, something that I noticed, I know this, outside of the guys, do you know who one of the lowest percentage shooter is currently on this team from last season that played last season? So not a freshman, but a guy who played last season. The
Not
worst
looking at my notes.
Might surprise you.
Phylon?
It's Jalil Bethea by a substantial margin.
That's right.
His shooting percentage last year was terrible.
Yeah.
And it might be Phylon by a little bit. I would have to check Phylon's. Because I wasn't considering Phylon. I know Bethea is a really, let's see, curious. Oh no, yeah, it's still Jalil Bethea. Phylon had shot at 31.5% last season, and Bethea shot at, let's see. Oh, sorry, no, Phylon did beat him out slightly. Jalil shot at 32. But keep in mind, a guy that's what you have to put into perspective.
Mm-hmm.
In Nate Oates' offense, Jalil Bethea shot at the same percentage as LeBaron Phylon.
Yep.
Those are not the same quality of shooter. I love LeBaron Phylon, but they're not even close to the same type shooter. I mean, there's a reason why Jalil Bethea was technically a higher ranked shooter than Con Knipple and all these other guys that are just got drafted, right? Obviously we can, whether he has it and puts it together, I'm not saying he is, we will see, but there's a reason why he was ranked above there, and that was a consensus that he was ranked above those guys. He clearly has the shots to shoot. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think